too into this, I just want to explain what I'll be organising. So at the moment I own Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Famicom, PC Engine, Sega Saturn and PlayStation 2, which also includes original PSX games, or PlayStation 1, sorry. And this means that there's a fair bit to organise, but the good news is that I only really collect for the Super Famicom and Game Boy. I wanted to keep a very focused collection. I didn't want a lot of stuff, because the problem with possessions is that to start with, you own them, that you possess them. But if you get a bit too many, I do honestly believe that possessions begin to own you instead. So, because I like the flexibility of being able to maybe once every few years move to another part of Japan, so it's important that I don't let things get too out of control. Anyway, that's what I'll be organising today. Plus, I'll also be setting up 4 of the consoles. I've already decided on 3 of them, not deciding what will be the 4th one that goes out, because it'll either be between the PS2 or the Saturn. We'll decide on that later on. And this isn't going to be the swankiest game collection or organisation video you're ever going to see. Okay, it's a little bit cramped in here, but I'm sure you'll be able to see what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm going to basically move this section into this corner down here. Now, the way that I've organised the game so far is not by alphabetical, it's kind of by publisher, and neither have I done it in the Japanese ordering system known as Goju Onjun, which is basically the Iwate or Kakikukeko ordering system that is natively used here in Japan. And I've done it roughly by publisher. So here is Nintendo, then I'm going to put Capcom here, and then basically everything else. I've got a little bit of Konami over here, for example, a small amount of Hudson and Enix and so forth, or Enix rather. Yeah, so what I've bought are these. I bought these from Daiso. It's a 100 yen shop here in Japan. There are others available. You've got Seria, you've got Can-Do, and basically these are retractable poles or extendable poles. You just unscrew them or start, turning them, and they extend. So as you can see, as I do that, it gets longer. And the idea is that I'm going to put these on the shelves inside, tension them, okay, and then what that means is that I've got two poles, not just one, so one at the back, one slightly more further forwards, and that will allow me to lay the boxes on their sides, so that doubles the amount of storage space that I have available. Quite a neat little solution, I think you'll agree. So, and what I need to do is to get a ruler, just so that basically I'm getting them roughly at the same height. I'm not going to try and do this precisely, I'm not that much of a perfectionist, but I can then use my ever-aging iPhone 6 to use the level on it, and that will mean that I know that I've got them fairly straight for what it's worth. So, 16.5 centimetres. Roughly comes to about here-ish. So let's keep my finger there, and yeah, that looks about right. Let's go with that. Right, that's one. It's not fully tensioned yet. I'll do that once I'm happy that I've got it roughly in the right place and that everything fits in there. So, whew. It's a lot warmer down here than it was up in Iwate, but that's no surprise. It's mostly been above 20 most days of the week so far, so yeah, makes a nice change. It's still sort of low teens up in Iwate, I believe. Right, again, that's roughly in place. I know it's not straight, but that'll do. I'm just going to adjust my feet position here because it's a little bit tight in here. There we go. Actually, one thing I do want to mention is, why am I even putting them in this cupboard here? Well, one, it means that not everything is out on display, which means that the place looks less cluttered. For me, that's an important point. I don't want stuff everywhere. I want some sense of being able to move around and be able to swing a cat without maiming it. The other reason is that in here, because this is a sliding door, okay, it means that I won't be getting all this sunlight on these boxes all of the time. So that's quite important, because otherwise this will all fade, and I'm not so bothered about the value, but it just looks unsightly, doesn't it? Anyway, so we've got a couple of those there now, so let's just tighten that a little bit. Get the phone, lay down. So here you can see the level. Okay, so by doing that it levels, and it does it in all orientations. I'm just going to lay that on there. About 6 degrees out, it reckons. Bit more, bit more, bit more. You can see it's not level. Yep, not level. And lay it on there, and you can see it's gone green. So yeah, you can see that's now level, because obviously if I do this, you can see it goes unlevel. So now go there, green, and then hopefully all the way across. Oh, a little bit wonky there. Oh, there it was. There you go. Now it reckons that's level. So now, there you go. Job's a good one. So now all I've got to do is just put all of these into this gap here, like so. What I will do at the end as well, folks, is I will show you the finished layout. So yeah. There's always one, isn't there? This one has no logo. Last, yeah, Bokujon Monogatari. Harvest Moon as it's known in the West. Whew, that looks good. I'm happy with that. Great. There we go. That looks good, doesn't it? So I want to make the other boxes for these Rock Band games, and gradually what's in this box plus these ones, well, I'll make the boxes for them, and I think it will look really quite nice. So yeah, happy with that. Technically I could move my EverDrive here, but as you can see it doesn't quite fit in there, so I suppose I could put the Rock Band games away, but I'll just leave it over by the Super Famicom stuff. So cool. Okay, so next bit down here, I think I'm going to put loose Super Famicom stuff in there. So I'm going to do the same idea as this, but I've bought something else from Daiso which I want to show you where it's a bit lighter. Oh man, maybe there was a bit more stuff than I remembered. So what I've been using for loose Super Famicom games and other CDs and DVD style format games for other systems are these green boxes that I bought from Seria. So, but they're just going to be too big to use in these solutions. I won't be able to get two in each sort of square cubby holders, as it were. So what I've bought are these. Now I should be able to get two of these side by side, and whilst they might look a bit strange, once the loose games are actually put in there, I think it will actually look quite neat. So yeah, so, and I'll actually be able to get more in there versus what I could in the green ones. So overall, I think that's quite a smart solution, and that can just sit on top of the white bars. So gradually over time though, I do want to find boxes for some of these games, like for example Turtles in Time. I've got the manual for it and I've got the cartridge, but just not the box. But for now, that'll be a good interim solution, and I think, you know, I can easily pull that out from the shelf, find what I'm looking for, and off I go. So, well, I've pretty much done what I can for now. I'm now going to head back off down to Daiso or Seria, one of the 100 yen stores anyway, mostly just to get a walk actually. Just feeling really stuffy in here, but that is looking really good in there now. Just a couple more bits that I need just to finish it off. So yeah, really happy with how it's gone so far. So I'll be back in a little while, and we can hopefully finish this all off today. So it's another day, folks. I just cracked on with the organisation when I got back from buying those last few bits that I needed, and I have finally sorted out my organisation. Now the good thing about this is, as I say, you wouldn't know anything was actually behind that door apart from maybe a few empty boxes, which there are, but there's also a little bit more. So this is the moment, folks, the big reveal. I now declare this underbed storage area open. Yeah, where's Brian Potter when you need him? Okay, I'm not going to go through every single game here because otherwise I think that would be a bit tedious and pointless. That's just my opinion. But anyway, so my collection is almost entirely focused on Super Famicom and Game Boy, including Game Boy Color. There are a few exceptions to this, as up until maybe for the first year or so, I'd say, I pretty much collected for anything that kind of took my fancy, but I quickly decided that I wanted to just focus on a couple of systems because, I'll be honest with you, I like having this stuff, but it leaves me feeling really uneasy when there's too much of it in too many directions. I know this might sound a bit weird, but I guess the thing is that I would rather have a small collection of stuff, although this does look a bit ridiculous even to my eyes now, but there you are. I'd rather have a smaller collection of stuff that is focused on the things that I love, rather than just trying to cover all bases and basically ending up trapped by indecision of what should I play kind of thing. So that's why I focus mostly on two systems. The other practical reason is just down to space and money. So up here is my Game Boy stuff. Virtually all the Game Boy games that I own are loose cartridges. That's deliberate because I wanted to keep the size of the collection physically down. I didn't want it to take up too much space. Just going to take a little sip of tea, otherwise it will get cold. There are a lot of games in there that you'll be very familiar with if you know about the Game Boy library, like the Super Mario Land games. You can see Mario Picross there, showing on the far left. So I've got a lot of the the games that you can sort of generally find pretty much anywhere in the world. There are some Japan-only games that I've found since being here that I think are actually quite interesting. I'm not saying that they're amazing games that you really ought to play, but they are decent games that I've found pretty enjoyable, and I hopefully can share those with you on the channel before long. So all of that is basically loose stuff, and there's also a Game Boy camera there, which I got with the Game Boy Pocket that I purchased, well, 3 years ago, so now I guess, from Yahoo Auctions. It came with 5 or 6 games, mostly Pokemon. There was Mole Mania, and I think a Sailor Moon game, and possibly one other that I forget now, but it also came with the Game Boy camera. Check out the Japanese for Retro Gamers series. I can't remember if I've covered it already, but I will be talking about that Game Boy bundle in that series of videos. Moving on, next that is my Game Boy Advance collection. Very small. As you can see, these boxes are tiny. I've got a box copy of Mario Paint with the Super Famicom mouse, which is a good little add-on for certain games. A bit like the Super Scope, though, I feel that it's just doesn't have quite the level of support that the mouse really needed. I'm sure there are plenty of games that would have benefited from supporting it, but strangely don't. A bit more on that in a moment. And then I've got my empty boxes for the GBA, Famicom, AV and Super Famicom. So, sorry, that's, you can't see that on picture. There you are. Just there. Let's go down a bit. So this is all of my boxed Super Famicom stuff. It's roughly ordered by publisher, but not really entirely, to be honest with you. It's not ordered alphabetically either, according to the Latin alphabet or the Japanese Goju Onjun ordering system, which is the A-I-U-E-O ordering system based on the Japanese hiragana, katakana phonetic alphabets. Here, the first couple of rows, those are Nintendo published games on the whole. There's a couple of exceptions there. There's Kiki Kai Kai, Nazo no Kuro Manto, which is Pocky and Rocky in the West, which is just Yeah. And then there's Doremi Fantasy, which is a sort of not follow-up, but features the same character as was in Milon's Secret Castle on the Famicom stroke NES. So, but on the Super Famicom, it's a platform, and a very good one at that too. Quite an easy game, but I really enjoy it. Beautiful graphics, and the soundtrack on it is awesome. Beautifully ambient, beautifully put together. Not everybody's cup of tea, but I love that kind of accompaniment to a game. Just in the top right here, let me get my finger, the black bit there, that's my EverDrive N8 for the Famicom. Below that is Capcom mostly. Got quite a few Capcom games now in box, which is really great because Capcom very rarely went wrong on the Super Famicom. Some of their games have a few little technical struggles, shall we say, especially the early titles such as Cho Makaimura, which is Super Ghouls and Ghosts. That's here, obviously has quite a bit of slowdown, but still doesn't stop it from being a fantastic game. Then there's some Enix there. Got ActRaiser, Star Ocean, late RPG for the Super Famicom. Fantastic game overall. Not the best RPG on the system, but still fantastic in my book. Plays beautifully. Has some private member actions and stuff between parties, which can alter the course of the game. The story's okay. It's certainly no Chrono Trigger or Grandia, but I still rate it as an RPG. Just point the finger here. Enix stuff continues with Dragon Quest and Violin or Hammering. And then I've got a small amount of Konami stuff, some usual suspects in there like Akumajo Dracula, Contra Spirits, which are Super Castlevania 4 and Super Pro Protector as it was known in Europe, but otherwise Contra 3, the Alien Wars in the West, respectively. And then I've got a small amount of Hudson soft there, although I do believe Hudson did publish Doremi Fantasy. So yeah, I've got Super Bomberman there, and also the Takahashi Meiji no Daibokenjima games, otherwise known as Super Avenger Island 1 and 2 there. Followed by some Squaresoft. Got one of my favourite JRPGs of all time, Chrono Trigger. I say one of my favourite of all time because there's also Grandia, which sometimes, depending on which way the wind's blowing, I'll say is my favourite. Other days I'll say it's Chrono Trigger. And then I just got random stuff. Standouts. I really like Lemmings on the Super Famicom. I just wish it supported the Super Famicom mouse, but it still plays great with the controller. Stevie Concert does support the mouse. That's a bit of fun. And also I've got Lama Nibunuichi Chogi Rambuhen, which is the best fighter I think in the Lama Nibunuichi games on all systems, PC Engine and Super Famicom included. And then I've got my Super Game Boy 2, which is used all the time, and one of my only boxed Game Boy games, Tetris. I picked it up in a box, a mint box at that, because it's so iconic and it made sense to me. But otherwise I don't buy any box Game Boy games, but I have two exceptions which I'll mention in just a moment. And you'll also notice there is actually a Switch game there. It's River City Girls. Okay, so the shoebox, the van shoebox that contains the loose Famicom games that I've yet to make boxes for. And then below that I've got my custom boxes that I made. So, but I've got Rockman, the original Rockman 1, shall we call it, all the way through to Rockman 6. And Rockman 2 I made the box for, which you would have seen that video, so that's really super rad. But otherwise I don't buy any more loose Famicom games. There's one exception to that. I probably will pick up Rainbow Islands for the Famicom, as I'm a huge Rainbow Islands fan. Anyway, below that I've got my loose Super Famicom games. These days I don't tend to buy loose Super Famicom. I'd rather end up with box games, but I guess that these represent pretty much the games that I'm not too bothered about having boxes for, but didn't really want to buy boxes for them. There are some exceptions. Gradius Free, which is just behind NBA Jam there. I do want to pick up a box for that. Also, Super Pang wouldn't be bad to pick up a box for, I don't think. I wouldn't mind that one being boxed. And there's also a couple of others in there. There's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. I have the manual for it, which is down by the DS. Let's just point my finger at it. There's a couple of loose manuals there. And also King of Dragons, another Capcom brawler or beat 'em up, which again I have the manual for, but just waiting patiently for an affordable empty box to turn up, which I can then complete. But otherwise, I can't really think off the top of my head of any games that I would buy and keep loose for the Super Famicom anymore. I don't know. Again, it's part of me keeping my collection quite tight. And to be honest with you, some of the games that you would see here, I might end up actually selling anyway, because once I've played them, I probably won't keep them. So, yeah. Okay, and we're almost done on this bit. Those are the other couple of exceptions, Game Boy wise. Those are Pokemon Silver and Gold. Then I've got my DS, which I've had for absolute years. A DS Lite, still works perfectly. That was the way that I played my GBA games, and I've got a few games which I brought with me from the UK, such as The World Ends With You, and also Radiant Historia, which was only released in Japan and North America. I imported that copy years ago. One of the, if not the best RPG that's on the DS, if you ask me. There's just those couple of loose manuals that I was on about there, which I picked up. So, ready to put in box complete. And then just to wrap up, over here, these green boxes here contain my PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn games. And then just to quickly spin it around this way, there's my PVM, but sadly no picture at the moment. I can get sound, but no picture, so it needs to be repaired. But I need to get it probably to Tokyo. There might be somewhere in Nagoya maybe that would look at it. But okay, and last, I've got my little console cabinet. I have wanted to be able to do this for so long, but when I first moved to Japan, I wasn't sure how long I would be here, basically. I mean, would I enjoy the job or not? And so I didn't invest in a lot of furniture. And as I settled into Japan, that situation persisted for one reason or another. I guess I just got involved doing other things, like going running after work, visiting places, and obviously skating and stuff, and getting the manga off the ground. I don't know, I think I settled into sort of having very little. But I made a decision that when I moved to Mie, I wasn't going to live in that manner anymore, that I wanted to be a bit more comfortable. And so one part of that is by setting up my consoles properly. So this is pretty much all of them. The only one that's missing here is the PS2. I'll just swap that out every now and then with the not Dreamcast, the Sega Saturn that's there. So yeah, so nothing too complicated going on here. I'll just point out a couple of interesting things. First of all, these little stands here. You can buy them on the internet, but these have actually come from Daiso, a 100 yen store here in Japan, which goes to show you how much you should pay for things sometimes. But basically, yeah, I will peel the stickers off these. I just wanted to keep them on there so I could show you in this video. But yeah, these are ideal for basically putting my Game Boy somewhere other than, like, where did I put it? So I have a Game Boy Pocket, GBA, and Game Boy Color, all with modded screens, which is cool because my aging eyes can't quite take the original screens in those free machines anymore. I play them all the time, fantastic. And then there's a little box of Game Boy games that I've got out that I'm currently playing, so that's all good. On the left here is my AV switch, 4-port AV switch. I just use composite. you know, as long as the picture is acceptable to me and I can see what I'm doing, the sound comes out well, I'm not in the business of wanting the best picture. So long as there aren't any major issues like huge amounts of shimmering when scrolling, I'm happy. I would like to get a RetroTink Mini at some point, but I believe they're sold out at the moment, or they were when I last looked, as that would improve the picture a little bit over using the cheapo composite to HDMI converter I've got there. But to be fair, I've never really noticed any real lag. I certainly can complete many games, and I set a time record on Daytona USA last night, so it can't be that bad, can it, to be honest with you? I'm sure some perfectionists would point out the flaws in my setup, but, you know, I'm enjoying it, and that's all that matters. Below that, I have my AV Famicom, a recent purchase which I talked about in my Japanese for Retro Games series, and then I've got my Super Famicom, which I purchased when I first came to Japan in 2020. Purchased that from a hard-off branch in Sendai, and have used it, well, if not every day, it's been used multiple times every week since I've been here. Well, mostly. There's been a few exceptions to that, like when I was back in the UK, for example, or perhaps when I was travelling. Yeah, so easily my favourite console of all time. Below that, I've got the Saturn set up at the moment, which is great because I've missed having that set up. I just didn't have the room for it in Miyako to have it set up properly, so that's there. And last, I've got my PC Engine there, which I mentioned earlier on. I've got the Perennial Super SD system free connected to it, so I can pretty much play anything I want on that, minus the Super graphics games, so, but that's not a huge loss. And then finally, just on the edge there in this little cubby hole here, is my PC Engine multi-tap, PC Engine mouse, which I found boxed in, well, basically brand new condition. I don't think it had ever been used, for 1,000 yen in Miyazaki City last year, so that was a great little find. And then my box of second controllers, which includes the PC Engine controller, which I don't have out at the moment, but there's second controller for the AV Famicom, Super Famicom, I think the spare controller for the Saturn's still in its box, and there's 3 PC Engine controllers in there, 2 which are from the core graphics, so they're like the charcoal coloured ones but have the turbo switches, and the original beige plastic one but lacking the turbo switches, sadly. I would have loved to have got the controllers that match the colour of the PC Engine that I have with turbo switches. They do exist, but for any of those in the know, PC Engine stuff is hideously expensive, including here in Japan, and those controllers go for a pretty penny, whereas on the converse, by being patient, I found 2 core graphics charcoal turbo switch controllers for about 1,000 yen a piece, which is pretty much unheard of, so I'll forgo the colour way being a little bit different. Anyway, I think that covers it all. My tea is now cold, so that must mean that I've been talking too long. I hope you've enjoyed how I've set up my retro gaming setup here in my apartment. And yeah, that's about it from me. I think I've waffled enough. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Hope you're all doing well, folks, and I'll see you soon. Peace.